Hi everyone, and welcome to the September horse racing hangout already. It seems like we just had the August one because we basically did. That one was delayed and it was August 31st. So now it is already the September horse racing hangout. I am trying out some new things tonight with the graphics and the countdown. Let me know in the questions or comments if you guys like it. So don't forget that if you are watching this live from any platform right now, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, you can comment on this feed and send us your questions, comments, things that you want answered, whatever, and use the hashtag horse racing hangout. We have two very special guests for tonight. I'm very excited to introduce people who I definitely look up to in my own career, in my own personal journey in the industry. So I'm excited to introduce them. But before we get on to that, I have a couple of Amplify announcements as usual. Amplify is going to be at Equine USA, which is this really large equestrian convention that's coming to the U.S. for the first time, October 1st through the 3rd. So come check us out. Come to our booth. We're going to have some cool giveaway stuff. And our booth is all about amplifying existing educational and industry initiatives, which is awesome. So we're going to have all sorts of information about different programs you can be involved with. We'll have info about Amplify itself, our events, the mentorship program, and then we're doing some cool things in collaboration with another booth that will be there that can enable you to win a grand prize if you come and interact. So that is in Lexington, Kentucky at the Kentucky Horse Park, October 1st to the 3rd. Come visit Amplify. Then next up, so we're going to have a very busy October. We are going to be engaging with people at Keeneland October 15th through the 17th. It's still a bit top secret on on the details of that yet, but we're going to have that out in the coming weeks, and you can find out how you can sign up, how you can engage with us, where you can find us, but we will be there October 15th through the 17th. And then the next Amplify Hangout is October 19th, which is going to be just around the corner. And the theme of that is, this is actually part 2 in a 2-part series. So last month, if you tuned in, we gave you a very big picture view of what happens with racing and breeding around the U.S. from different regions and jurisdictions and regional breeding programs and incentives. And this month is now Racing Around the U.S. Part 2, Education Edition. So we're going to be talking about 2 educational programs that are both focused in different parts of the U.S. Next month, October 19th, we start another 2-part series, which is going to be Racing Around the World. So first, we're going to dive into a broad overview of what racing looks like in different countries around the world, who some of those big players are. And then in November, we'll bring you the part 2 of that, which is going to be educational opportunities around the world. So that is all really, really exciting. And then I have a question for those of you out there tonight. I want to kind of mix things up. You see it tonight. We've got the graphics, which is really cool and exciting. But as we go on in future months, I want to add kind of a thing of the month. So I want to know from you, should we have a tip of the month, like a piece of advice or a quote from a horseman or just a general tip about building your career? Do you want a homework of the month? I mean, I'm not into homework, but homework can be actually very useful. And we have a surprising number of people who reach out and actually ask, what should I be working on to really build my skills? So maybe a little piece of homework that can give you something to work on and keep building your knowledge and expertise in the industry. Or do you want a resource of the month, such as a book or a piece of information or a website or a database that you should be looking into and learning more about? So again, let us know in the comments, tip of the month, A, B, homework of the month, or C, resource of the month. So we want to know what to add. So now we can dive into our topic for the night. So I can't talk about every single educational program that's going to be in the U.S. So I wanted to focus in on 2 programs that are maybe slightly lesser known per se, but are doing absolutely amazing things and are definitely programs that you should consider being involved in. So one of those is the Maryland Thoroughbred Career Program. And I have Jordan Egan, who's going to be joining us to talk about that. And then we have the Horseman Apprenticeship here in Kentucky. And my amazing coworker, Lori Mays, is going to come on to tell us about that. So first off, as always, you guys know that I like to read bios, and I think that there's a lot to be learned from people's bios and to kind of see how they've navigated their path into the industry. And then we're going to bring them on and actually talk to them about how they navigated that path before we really dive into the content for tonight. So Jordan Egan is a graduate of the University of Arizona Racetrack Industry Program and Godolphin Flying Start. She serves as the Director of Development for the Maryland Horse Foundation and also works on a variety of projects for the Maryland Horse Breeders Association and Maryland Million Limited. Growing up in Southern California, Jordan's early days were spent riding and volunteering at a local therapeutic riding facility. From college onward, Jordan immersed herself in the thoroughbred industry, building a fulfilling career fueled by a passion for horses. One of her great joys is helping others do the same. Lori Mays joined the Chamber as the Equine Talent Pipeline Project Manager in September of 2018 and works cooperatively with the Kentucky Equine Education Project, or KEEP, to bridge the skilled workforce gap in the equine industry of Kentucky. Before her time there, she held roles of Operations Manager and Director of Youth and Community Education at the Kentucky Horse Park, where she was instrumental in the development and implementation of countless programs. Most recently, Mays developed a nationally recognized equine program in conjunction with the United States Pony Clubs at Locust Trace Agri-Science Center, a world-renowned agricultural high school. By gaining an understanding of the industry through these endeavors, Mays is now working statewide with employers, educators, and other equine stakeholders to develop a talent pipeline that will ensure a consistent, skilled labor pool moving forward. And I hope that is whoever you are out there watching that live, you can be part of our skilled labor force. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Jordan Egan and Lori Mays to the stage. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys so much for joining. Jordan, where are you joining us from?
I am in Glendora, California. Okay, I should have put a dot on a map. So it's not evening here. It's mid or late afternoon. I'm working a co-work space because I'm still largely working on Maryland programs and projects. But Glendora, California, about 10 miles east of Santa Anita on the 210.
Awesome. And Lori, where are you joining us from?
Well, I'm not far from you, Anise, about 30 minutes. So I am just outside of Lexington, Kentucky in Paris. So still a big equine area in Bluegrass, so basically central Kentucky.
Awesome. Not far at all. And actually, I'm really excited because there are people watching live. I have proof of it because Melissa Dunn votes for B. And Ashley Marcy,
hi, Ashley.
You know Ashley, yeah. a graduate of the program that we're about to talk about, also votes for B. So that is really exciting. A lot of people
was
want
homework
of the month.
So I had an idea for a resource, and you could make this into the homework. But remember, did you get the functional anatomy book on Flying Start, the blue small little book that had equine functional anatomy?
I think I
it's
did.
My favorite resource, but you could also have them study it for it's blue. It's called Functional Anatomy. You can get it on Amazon. It's like $12. It's by Dr. Chris Coles, and it is the best anatomy resource I've ever seen on horses. So there is do like I don't know, anatomy quiz after some homework. But
I like
that's the resource, Functional Anatomy. I think everyone should have it in there. That is like the book I keep from Flying Start, and it's only this big and really it's like a kid's book. So had to plug that book.
I feel a little bit shortchanged that I didn't get that. I'm going and buying.
I'm so old that they gave us books.
I love that. And I actually, especially with the mentorship program, like young people reaching out and like, I'd be curious to ask this of both of you guys too. I get a lot of young people asking me what books they should read, and then they actually read them because they tell me that, like pieces of the books. And do you guys get that too? Like, do young people reach out to you asking for books that they should be reading to build their skills? Or is that just a total anomaly?
I mean, I do as a high school teacher at one point. I had students that very much wanted tangible books, and you can find a lot of them now digitally as well. So it's kind of a nice resource to be able to point them in either direction. But I think that there's a lot of merit in having good resources in terms of books or periodicals.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get a lot of them on the career program, whether kids are interested in pedigrees or that sort of thing. And we have a wealth of books in our office, but I also send them to Cindy Dubler in our office, who is the, resident encyclopedia. So, but functional anatomy would be my book recommendation.
Awesome. I just finished, I was actually looking over at my bookshelf. It's called Horse Trader by Patrick Robinson. And it's not even in print anymore, but you can actually get the ebook for about $20. And it's about Robert Sangster and the growth of Coolmore and basically how Coolmore began. And I really wish that I had read it before I started Flying Start, because so many more things would have made sense. And maybe it was a good thing to read it afterwards. Maybe I wouldn't have appreciated it as much, because now I can make the connections in my brain and be like, oh, that family's connected to that family, or that's why that's named that, or, oh, I remember that farm. I didn't realize those people had it. So yeah, it definitely is, reading is a great way to, keep building your skills throughout your life. So, I want to dive into our content for the night rather than keeping you guys talking about my random tangents. So we're going to start with tell us your story. And Lori, I'm actually going to start with you on this, because your bio, I actually could have kept going. And because you have 2 master's degrees, you guys both have your master's, are 2 very well-educated women. And you've been everywhere. We worked in Ireland for quite a while, correct? So let's actually go back to the very beginning and how you became interested in the equine industry whatsoever.
Yeah, so I'll try and make it a little bit brief. So Denise, just cut me off if you need to at some point. So I grew up in a rural area of Georgia with a family who was very supportive, but not involved in the equine or agriculture industries at all. And so I grew up riding as a sport and a hobby, like a lot of individuals do, and got really involved in the equine industry as a career path that way. So I went to Clemson University in South Carolina for my undergraduate degree, and got a degree in animal science with an emphasis in equine business. And then, like anybody that is graduating with their bachelor's and doesn't know what they want to do, they're like, I'll go to grad school. And so I went to graduate school in Texas at West Texas A&M. So it's affiliate of A&M, the A&M system outside of Amarillo. And I originally went for exercise physiology. That's what I really thought I wanted to do rehab work and things like that. There's a great program there. And then, like best laid plans often happen, funding for that program got cut 2.5 months after I moved there. And so the university basically said, we have funding for nutrition studies. There's always companies that are wanting to fund that. And I'll be very honest, I detest nutrition. I know enough to feed my horses properly, but that is not my thing. And so moving halfway across the country and spending a good chunk of time and money to study something I wasn't really interested in really threw kind of a wrench in my plans. So my options were to move universities and or find something career-wise to do, or to figure out what I could do study-wise at that university. So I actually worked with a lot of cattle producers in that area. It's a huge cattle industry area. They were really struggling to figure out what to do. This is going to sound really crazy, but they were really struggling to figure out what to do with deceased animals on big feed yards for large animals. There had been quite a bit of studies done with composting of smaller type animals, so specifically poultry and swine, but there hadn't been a lot of work of what do you do with a large animal like a cow or a horse. If you can't bury it, you can't take it to a landfill anymore, environmental regulations were changing, et cetera. can we compost them? So my study ended up being studying different composting techniques and materials for large animal carcasses. So we actually worked with local equine veterinarians that would donate horse carcasses to us with permission from owners after euthanasia or death. And that's what I did for 2 years. So if you had told me 2 years before I would be studying dead horses and how they turned into dirt, I'd have told you were crazy. But I really enjoyed it. I embraced it. I found that I love microbiology, and I'm always a person that really enjoys studying things that are going to make a difference. So this was a real world problem that we were able to utilize within the equine industry, but also really helped with the cattle production area, because a large animal is a large animal. So we did a lot of work with Texas cattle producers as well. So when I finished my master's there, backing up just a little bit, when I was at Clemson, I actually studied abroad as part of a semester experience. And I was in Ireland, and I took equine courses at the University of Limerick. And then I actually was able to ride for a trainer while I was over there, who bred and showed and hunted sport horses and sport ponies. And I'm sitting down, but I'm 5 feet. So ponies are like my jam. And I was able to hunt and show ponies in Ireland for free and get paid for it, which was amazing. And so when I graduated my master's, I didn't really know what I wanted to do still, but I knew I wanted to stay in the industry. So I basically called my former employer back in Ireland and said, can I come back and work for a little while? She didn't have anything available, but she connected me with some other people there. So I went back over after my master's, and I worked at another yard there that specialized in bloodstock. So I got a taste of the bloodstock industry over in Ireland, which was fantastic. And then I kind of got to the point where I either was going to stay in Ireland permanently or I was coming back to the U.S. So decided to come back to the U.S. and got a position at the Kentucky Horse Park, originally working on kind of the show and entertainment side of things as a liaison between all the different departments, and eventually moved full-time into their education department, where I did youth and community education. And that's where I learned about a new school that was being built in the Lexington area, that was a school that pulled from the area high schools in Fayette County, which is where Lexington is, but it was specifically agriculture. So they had anything from ag mechanics to horticulture, and they had an equine program. We had an 11-stall barn, an indoor arena. It was a fantastic facility. And so they brought me on board to create and teach their equine program. So I was there for 5 years, taught equine to 9th through 12th graders. And did a lot of liaisoning within the industry in Kentucky. And from there, I was approached while I was still in that position with my current position. They had originally come forward and said, we're going to need education support as we build these pipelines for people coming into the equine industry. Can your school help support us? And we said, absolutely. And then that position ended up coming available. I was looking to make a change from equine education. And so I stepped into that role, and I'm starting my 4th year in that program. And I work jointly with the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, which is our state Chamber of Commerce business organization, as well as KEEP, which is an equine nonprofit here in Lexington. So it's been a very eclectic, curvy ride, but all of those experiences have led to what I do today, which I really enjoy. And I really just take opportunities as they come. So who knows what I'll be doing in 10 years. So that's a snapshot, Denise.
I remember when you told me the studying dead horses and decomposition story for the first time. That is, for one, that's probably like the most amazing party fact ever. Like it's something you never think about, but it is so essential. And it just goes to show that there are so many careers and, necessary people in the industry to do jobs that you would never imagine. And it also goes to show that as a young person, I was with 2 of my friends today over at Keeneland during the September sale, and we're all in a career, but we were all still talking about how you just never know what's going to happen in life, and how you can just kind of like the wind just sort of takes you from one thing to the next, and you meet people and you do multiple projects at once, and then eventually you sort of settle into your place, and then some other crazy thing comes along, and it's just all the joy and excitement of being in the industry. And so, Jordan, I I got to learn more about your story this year. I can't even remember how we met for the first time. I think Sarah Gordon had reached out to me for something, and that we had never really crossed paths. And now, like, I look up to you and admire you so much. And, your story and my story are similar in that we both did Flying Start. But talk about how you first became interested in horses.
Yeah, that's funny. Because I admire you a lot too. So that's how you know you're working with the right people. Just grew up horse crazy and riding, and never did any really super competitive showing or anything like that. But I went to school. I'm from San Diego County in California. So I tell everybody this move back to California isn't as dramatic as it seems, because this is home for me. But I went to a school in Central California, Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, my first year, and studied equine studies. And I kind of thought, what am I going to do with this equine studies degree? And I was just fortunate, which is why this kind of thing and networking and talking and just getting out there and asking for help is so important, because one person saying one line changed my entire life. Somebody mentioned to my dad in our small hometown, there's some horse racing school classes, something going on at the University of Arizona that you should look into for your daughter. And he came home and he's like, my lost, loved, horse-loving, crazy daughter, there may be hope for you. So, horse racing. So I loved San Luis Obispo. It was a wonderful school. I just felt like, the 4 years probably wasn't going to end up in a very fruitful career path. So we drove to Arizona, to Tucson, that spring break, and I transferred my sophomore year, and I knew nothing about racing. Literally nothing. I didn't know what a claiming race was. I didn't know anything. I was so fortunate there, because that was the same time frame when Flying Start started, and Joe Osborne was actually doing the traveling road show promoting the program, which just seems crazy to even think about. He went to the University of Arizona as well, which is also crazy. But he's, just incredible. And so he came into one of our classes and spoke about the Godolphin Flying Start, well as Darley Flying Start program, because again, I'm old, but and I thought, I'm this sophomore that knows nothing about racing, but I thought, wow, that sounds incredible. That sounds like a good goal. So first, what is a claiming race? Okay, let's figure that out. So the testament to the Arizona program is that you can go in and not know anything. And, a lot of educational programs are like this. And if you just ask questions and do your best and fail sometimes and succeed sometimes and take internships, even when they're inconvenient and they don't fit into your plans, I graduated and was on Flying Start that next year. And it just was the biggest joy and relief of my life that plan all worked out. So that was my intro to racing. And also, I love people. I love helping people. I'm just from that kind of a, family that it's like, what can we do to, give you that one sentence that's going to change your trajectory or help you out. So a combo of having that own experience myself and just kind of that kind of passion has led me to this road. Right after Flying Start, I worked for Godolphin in Kentucky for 3 years. I was fortunate to work directly for Jimmy Bell in the racing department and just had a tremendous 3 years there. I moved from there to Delaware because my now husband was training for working as an assistant for Mike Trombetta, who's a Mid-Atlantic trainer, and he was going from Delaware to Florida. And we just needed to get in the same state. So I thought, well, I want to get my MBA. So I went to the University of Delaware and started my MBA there. And because it's racing, you never stay in the same place for very long. So then Jason was in Maryland and he was doing the commute from Delaware to Bowie, which was brutal. So we moved to Maryland and I finished my MBA online and was able to start working for the Maryland Horse Breeders Association. And I think, this is nothing to do with, who I am or anything, it just is you start packing on enough experience and quality references and good stuff, you can kind of make your path. I'm not saying you get your dream job every day, but if you can come in, be a little flexible, It's just a good time when you're young to just go do some stuff and try some stuff and go put yourself out there, and people will bring you on. If you're a quality candidate, people will be scrambling to find jobs for you. So I think just every time you have an opportunity, take that next step that's gonna excel you while you can. I am now a mother of two, married. I don't get to go do 6 months internships in Ireland anymore, or take 2 years off and do Flying Start. But there is a certain period of your life where you can really pack a lot of stuff in your bag and be ready to help and grow an organization. So anyway, that's how I ended up in the Maryland Horse Breeders Association, which then obviously grew. And now I'm back in California, but that's just my husband's fault. But I'm still working works in the racing office at Santa Anita. So we came back out here this year, but I'm able to work remotely on a lot of stuff still. So that's good.
And one of the things, a big thing that I think is so cool about both of you guys and having you on to talk about each of these respective programs is that, I know that both of your own personal experiences in the equine industry probably influenced your work in these programs, and you were both pretty instrumental in their development. Lori, I'll have you explain more about the apprenticeship, but I know that there is kind of an existing structure there, but you helped so much to adapt that into what it is now. And Jordan, I know from your work with Maryland Thoroughbred Career Program, you kind of created that into a mini Godolphin Flying Start in and of itself. So I think we'll dive into the careers or the programs portion of things now. And so I think a good place to start is by bringing up the video about the Maryland Thoroughbred Career Program.
I applied for the Maryland Thoroughbred Career Program because I wanted to learn more about what it takes to run these large facilities and commercial operations. It gives me a really in-depth view on what it's like to run these places and how these people's lifestyles have changed, and also like how they started. Some of them had no idea that they'd be interested in horses. It's given me a good view about how you don't always have to follow a straight line. You can start from somewhere completely different and then work your way up, or you can skip around.
I applied to the Maryland Thoroughbred Career Program because I'm really interested in the sports medicine behind the racing industry. Staying as a pre-vet major, I've mainly focused with vets and medicine and that aspect, but I'm really realizing how connected the entire industry is.
I became interested in the program because I'm not 100% on what I want to do in the equine program yet, so I figured this program would be a great jump start into getting connections and networking. The program helps me reach my goals because it kind of gives me a better understanding and a better idea of what I want to do with my career and my future. I think it's a great jump start if people are looking to go into the equine industry. There's a lot of great networks. We've been to a bunch of different farms and all sorts of things that I knew nothing about that were in Maryland. So I think it's a great opportunity for people or younger kids that want to get interested in horses, and I think it's a great opportunity.
Awesome. And I think a good thing to talk about right away is a lot of people, when they think the thoroughbred industry or even the equine industry and working in the equine industry in a lot of regards, they think Kentucky. And, that's a big purpose of this episode, is to talk about, experiences around the entire U.S. to learn about the equine industry. So you landed in Maryland with the Maryland Horse Breeders Association. So explain the impetus of, when that idea came into your mind that we should create the Maryland Thoroughbred Career Program. Were young people reaching out? Was there kind of a pre-existing demand for it? Or did you just feel like this is what we need to do to get young people involved?
So the Maryland Horse Foundation is the charitable arm of the Horse Breeders Association, and our executive director, Cricket Goodall, and I were working on, we would give out annual grants to various equine related charities, mostly therapeutic riding and aftercare. And the money we were raising every year, it wasn't enough to make a difference. I mean, everybody will take whatever, and are grateful for it. But we thought, okay, is this the best use of what we're doing? We're a small fish in the aftercare pond. We can continue to support those things, but also what could we be doing that's a little bit different? And Cricket actually brought up, the educational aspect of things. And that was just, it was one of those things that just works out because it's happened to be a passion of mine. It wasn't on our radar at the Horse Breeders or the foundation. It just was born out of an idea that Cricket had that happened to land right in the middle of, my heart. So we went from there and basically explored a couple of different internship type things. But then it was like, why don't we just make a 1 week Godolphin Flying Start in Maryland? Maryland, coming from Kentucky, and I didn't grow up there, obviously. I was shocked and amazed by how big and strong and wide and amazing the industry is there. So it's also a good opportunity to give people the chance to come explore what Maryland has to offer and explore careers there. It's there's a lot of crossover. A lot of the career program participants then go to Keeneland and run into Josh Pons or Katie Voss or all sorts of different people, and it's kind of a fun connection. But that's how it was born. It was just a simple conversation. Again, one line can change a lot of things. So we went from there, and I thought, let's just not make it too complicated. So I said, okay, how many kids? And I'm like, well, who can fit in a minivan if I'm driving? Well, 6. Okay. How old? Well, I want them to be able to get to wherever the starting point is every day. So I want them to probably be able to drive. Okay. And, but that's flexible. The top end, I just kind of threw 21 on there, I think, but have all disclaimers all over that anybody really can apply so long as we talk about it. And it just, so many times we don't do things because we over plan them, right? It's so easy to tinker. And I thought, we just got to do it. We just got to pick a week and we got to put up an application, and it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be a great experience because I have great people lined up for them to go visit. And it's just a magical unicorn of a program. And it's so much fun for all of us involved. And I just always really try to make sure that the participants get a lot out of it. So the takeaway is, when you have a good idea, just roll with it and stop thinking about it and plan it well. It takes a lot of work, but it's just try it. And sometimes things flop and sometimes things are great. And I think this is a great one. And I was just thrilled the first year with our participants and have been every year since. And Anise, you got to shadow it this year. So you got to look in on the magic that happens.
I was actually gonna say, when you said that then they go to other places and they see the same people, because that happened to me when I was at the Fasig-Tipton July sale. I ran into so many people that I had met there that had come down from Maryland, and I made so many friends out of going to shadow the program this year. And actually, Charles Churchill, who's one of your graduates from this year, is speaking at Equitana, the panel that Amplify is organizing, and to talk about his experiences on the program. So
that's great.
It is pretty amazing. I was blown away. I felt like I was at adult horse camp for the week and learned so much.
So do I.
I never
It's fun.
stopped learning. It's so cool.
Yeah.
So Lori, when it comes to, and Jordan, we're going to come back to you and have more questions about the Maryland Thoroughbred Career Program, but how, a lot of what you do in your position, you've described it this way before, is connecting the dots and taking existing structures in place and amplifying them, for use of my favorite word. And, introducing people who need to be introduced and making sure that resources that are already in place don't go, unnoticed, or that they aren't underutilized. You connect the dots on things and make sure that they achieve their full potential. So how did you start working on the apprenticeship program? And, explain how it went from where it was when you picked it up to what it is now.
Yeah. So I first want to note that of all the cool things in the scope of our industry, Jordan, we don't have a career program like yours. So you are ahead of us on that one.
I told Anise 70 times, you better not steal this from me and take all my Kentucky applicants.
Kayla says, go Charles.
Yeah, go Charles is right. And go Kayla.
I've had the pleasure of meeting Charles several times this past year too. So it's fantastic.
Such a big industry,
and very small all at the same time because you do run in the same circles, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So about the apprenticeship program. So if anybody's familiar with apprenticeship programs, they've been around for actually a really long time. They are a federal program through the U.S. Department of Labor, and then are supported by state Department of Labor cabinets across the United States. And so most people are familiar with apprenticeships in more type trade type settings, I guess, in employment. One that's most known probably would be electricians. So just to kind of give you an idea of where apprenticeships were, that is a program that's been built for a very long time. The structure is very solid. They are a federal and state recognized program. But for electricians, for an electrician to get their master electrician's license, they have to go through an apprenticeship after some trade schooling and some other kind of on-the-job training. They have to work under a master electrician in an apprenticeship setting for 2 to 3 years, depending on what specialty they're going after. And that's just something that they are required to do by law in the United States to receive their electrical licenses. So that is the same type of apprenticeship as we're going to be talking about with equine, but it's very much more known in kind of those trade occupations than in others. So one of the things that we were discussing with employers is a lot of times they hire people who have a huge passion for the industry, but maybe not have a lot of experience. They don't have a strong educational background in the equine industry. They don't really know what they want to do. They're just trying to get started. And so they end up trying to find places to be able to gain that experience. So that is what apprenticeships are for, is to actually give experience and education for people who are looking for a foot in the door. So what apprentices do is you are actually an employee of a facility, whether that be a farm or a vet clinic, and we'll kind of go over some of the skills necessary later. But it's tailored to different facilities. So you are actually, as an apprentice, are employed at this facility, and you are also in an educational setting. So there are stipulations and skill sets that are required to be taught by your employer that are part of what we call the Horseman Apprenticeship program. And there is also what they call related technical instruction, which is we call it the book education part of it, but it can be delivered in a lot of different ways through webinars or online classes or in-person classes or various ways. And so it's really a learn as you earn program. So you are working while you're going to school, basically. So we worked within Kentucky. There was an equine specific apprenticeship that was registered with the U.S. Department of Labor when I came on board to this program. It was put together and implemented in 1983, and it has not been touched since 1983.
Wow.
There was a lot of things that needed to be kind of tweaked and changed as the industry has evolved over the last 30 years. And so that's what we did. We took that apprenticeship model that was already registered, and we went to employers and asked them, what do you need now? What do you need people to come in with? What are the skills that are really going to be valuable to you as an employer in these various settings? And we tailored that skill set and basically got it reapproved through the U.S. and Kentucky Department of Labor. And we re-implemented a more generalized horseman apprenticeship. So the cool thing about apprenticeships is that they are recognized across the country. That is because it is a federal program. There are a lot of incentives for employers as well, because they are acting as both an employer and an educational setting. So there's some funding opportunities for them and some other kind of perks for being a host site for an apprentice. And there's a lot of benefits for potential apprentices too, because it is an educational setting. They oftentimes are eligible for different funding opportunities as a student, as well as having the ability to learn as they're making money. So they are not incurring a lot of that educational debt that more traditional education programs. So we can kind of get more into it later as questions come up, Anise. So that's kind of the general overview. So it's taking a program that has been around for a very long time in terms of apprenticeships, and we've tailored it to meet the needs of our equine employers here in the U.S.
That's a good reminder right there. So don't forget to send us your questions and comments wherever you're watching from. Comment on that feed. Send us your questions about either of these programs or just questions for Lori and Jordan in general. Lori, do you want me to bring up that document about apprenticeships in general?
So, well, if you want to just bring up the equine specific one, I'll go over real quick in general. But I think we kind of talked about the generalization. So the equine specific apprenticeship, it's apprenticeships are done in hours instead of months or something like that. So the equine apprenticeship is a 2,000 hour program, which is roughly, if you're working 6 days a week, in a general schedule, it's about a year-long program, and it's split into these different kind of categories for competencies. The titles of the competencies are a little not what we would see in the equine industry, but they are state titles. So we've kind of left those for ease in matchup for Department of Labor purposes. And then the bullet points underneath are what the employers are really wanting to see. So those numbers off to the side are the number of hours that are needed for each of these kind of headings. So just for example, examine and observe animals to detect signs of illness, disease, or injury, looking for 100 hours of that. So that may be determining horses' vital signs, values that indicate normal, caution, and dangerous levels, be able to identify, record, and report when animal is off feed, behaviors out of character, learning basic first aid, and all of that kind of stuff. So general observation. And these are things that if you're working on a farm, that you're doing on a daily basis anyway. So you're just racking up those 100 hours. So all of these kind of stipulations and skills that are from employers specifically that have said, these are the kind of skills we want our employees to know, and we're going to help train them while they're working for us. Then there's also suggested related technical instruction that's kind of at the bottom of these. And like I said, there's different ways at obtaining this. A lot of employers will somehow offer these to people, apprentices that are working for them. So they may have someone on site at their particular facility that is an industry expert in, breeding practices or something like that. And so they will have an apprentice just learn from that individual, and that counts as related instruction for them. Some of it is also, you can actually go through courses, online courses, if you want to take college classes, et cetera. There's a lot of different ways to kind of obtain those, but through on-hand learning, so hands-on learning, as well as that related instruction, you kind of get a well-rounded overview of what employers have said that they really need. So it's a great way to learn without spending an exorbitant amount of time in a particular institution, and it can be tailored to each facility and employer, and the ideas that the apprentice really wants to learn. So if you're more interested in one part of the industry than another, apprenticeships are able to be tailored quite a bit.
And that was actually going to be my next question. From an employer perspective, and you already said that there are some benefits to employers to taking on a apprentice, but if there's an employer out here who's listening and might be wondering, well, how easy is it for me to adopt something like this, curriculum like this into my day-to-day schedule that my employees are already doing? What would you have to say to that? How can they really kind of intertwine that in with what their regular routine is?
So there are people, here in Kentucky, we work with our community college system, KCTCS, that helps employers really look at what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, and then looking at the requirements of an apprenticeship and meshing those two things together. So we have apprentices right now that are at various types of farms. We have some in vet clinics. We have some that are in transportation companies, et cetera. And we've tailored all of those apprenticeships to their particular facility. So a transportation company may not be actively doing breeding sheds in terms of an apprentice leading that stallion or that mare into the breeding shed, but they are transporting to the breeding sheds. So they can engage in some of that in various ways. Obviously, they're not going to be taking foal temperatures on mares and foals every morning, but they are going to be monitoring vital signs of horses in transport. So there's just different ways to tailor it. So as employers, we can kind of look at what your day-to-day operations are and help you tailor the requirements of the apprenticeship to fit what you're already doing. So it's not a heavy lift on employers in terms of you have to completely redo your day-to-day operations to fit this program. It's really the other way around. The program can be tailored to you. The other benefit to employers is it's free. It doesn't cost anything for an employer to sign up and to become a host site for apprentices. There is some paperwork involved, but really once you get that kind of lined out with the Department of Labor and our Office of Apprenticeships here in Kentucky, but in any state that you're in, it's a pretty easy thing to maintain. And there's a lot of benefits for employers without a lot of upfront costs or time involved.
So Jordan and Lori, Jordan, I'm going to ask you first. What type of student in terms of knowledge level would be best suited for the Maryland Thoroughbred Career Program? And you already said that your age is, what is your age range? Just remind me of that again.
16 to 21-ish, but email me if you're outside of the range. I had to put something on there so that it gave people a general idea, but so end of high school into college.
And what level of equine knowledge or lack thereof knowledge would you like them to have coming into the program? Do you need to have someone who's this super horse racing crazy kid who's like, yeah, I know everything about every single piece of horse racing history ever? Or can they have a pretty, basic knowledge?
I like to have a diverse group. So I like a little bit of everything, to be honest. This year we had Sophie O'Connor, who's a whiz on pedigrees. We had John Piasek in it, first year, I guess, who's a betting genius. We've had them to people that are just kind of like Amber, who you saw in that video, kind of just a horse nut in the University of Kentucky program, looking to explore different options. And I like having people that were like me my first year of University of Arizona, and then people that have been really studying this for a lot of years because they learn so much from each other. It really helps to enhance the whole experience and the whole week. Part of the process is that we spend a week in the car driving around together, and so they can kind of start to build a rapport and answer each other's questions and learn from each other that way too. So I like all levels of experience. The people that aren't qualified kind of weed themselves out. We do an interview process and everything too. So it's more about the gumption and the interest than it is about the experience level.
Lori, how about for a equine or horseman apprenticeship? I'd imagine that, almost anybody of any age could be an apprentice. Do they have to be over 18? And what skill level would you need coming into it?
Yeah, so they have to be 16 to go into what is considered the full apprenticeship program. There are youth apprentices that kind of work through school districts, and they're a little bit different in each state. But that is also a federal program, and that's under 16. A little bit different stipulations, but for the full apprenticeship program, they just have to be 16. I was just actually talking to somebody from the U.S. Department of Labor. They had their oldest apprentice ever registered this year in 2021 at the age of 79.
That is awesome.
So it is you're never too old to become an apprentice. And then as young as 16. And really, in terms of the horseman apprenticeship, they really don't have to have any background or experience. Obviously, we want them, and I would consider them, having this kind of want to learn more about the industry if they're applying for a program like that. But really, their skill level is going to depend on where they're placed as an apprentice. So if they're coming in with absolutely no experience whatsoever, we would want to place them at a facility that can offer more hands-on mentorship. Whereas if they do have some background and some experience, they could go into a facility that's a little bit more hands-off. Obviously, it's still going to be a teaching environment, but it will kind of depend on where they're placed as an apprentice. But there have been people of all skill levels that have been in the apprenticeship program.
And how would you guys recommend that a young person prepare themselves for each of these respective programs, to be able to take full advantage of the opportunity? Jordan?
Well, first you can email me. MarylandHorse.com is our website, and there's a programs tab. There's an awful lot of stuff on MarylandHorse.com, but specifically go to the programs tab, and my email address is there. Because beyond just the 1 week, regardless whether or not you do the program, I'm always happy to help and talk and network. So Thank you, Anise. Right there. So, I've always wanted to do that. Call now. So, you know, I think just if you reach out in anything that you're going to do, whether you're applying for a college, for a job, for a program, for anything, I think the people that reach out before the application always stand out because you're like, oh, wow, you reached out and then you applied. You know, paying attention to this and digging around the website a little bit is always helpful too, because you learn a little bit more about what you're applying for. But for me, it's just be genuinely interested in a job and a career in the thoroughbred industry and have enough. You know, it's kind of nice we're in Maryland because there's a little bit of a step that people have to take, whether it's flying out or driving out. We cover accommodations if we can, and we try to make it as frictionless as possible, but you do have to come here. So just think about if a week in Maryland in the summer sounds good to you or not, but it's open to all.
It is a great idea.
Yeah.
even with the
she was the year of the cicadas.
The cicadas, yes.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with the cicadas. It was the coolest thing ever. Some people hated them. I was so happy to be a part of the Maryland Thoroughbred Career Program Year of the Cicadas. It was amazing.
It won't happen again for 17 more years. So you're safe with the cicadas. Oh my God, that was hell. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that, but it was awful. They were on. They're big. Yeah, they're not.
Yeah.
Makes my nose itch just thinking about it. So yeah, everybody's welcome, but I think just communicating before the application, it really helps you no matter what you're applying for. We all keep a file, you know, so that's just good advice in general.
Very true. Lori?
Yeah, so the easiest way is we have a website as well. It's called the Equine Workforce Initiative. It has all of our programming on there, but there is a section for apprenticeships. But probably the easiest way is just to reach out to me and to email, and I can get you connected. Each state does have an office of apprenticeships that's through their. We do it here in Kentucky as part of our cabinet, so part of our state government here. But there is an office within the cabinet of workforce development and education that's specifically for apprenticeships. So we can connect you with them. But there's also a Department of Labor, U.S. Department of Labor site that's specifically for apprenticeships that you can learn more about. And you can go through the list of careers and approved apprenticeships. So that's not just equine, that is literally every approved apprenticeship in the United States of America for any career, discipline, et cetera, which it's very, very impressive. There's hundreds of them. And really then just kind of understanding personally what type of or what part of the equine industry you may be interested in. There are opportunities in apprenticeships across the equine industry. So if you are more interested in the farm side of things, the track side of things, the veterinary side of things, et cetera, that will help us kind of guide you in the right direction of an apprenticeship once you decide that's the way for you to go. So it's quite easy, actually. Like Jordan said, reaching out is the first step. And then we can connect you with the proper people. And once we figure out where you kind of want to go.
More proof that people are watching live. Hey, Rachel. Rachel is one of the Amplify's shining stars. It was cross paths with me many a times at our events. Where could I find more info about applying for both of these programs, which fortunately you each talked about it. Reaching out to Jordan or Lori to get more information is a great way to start. This is a good question. Can the apprenticeship count as an internship for college credit?
So we have had that before. That is more up to the college or university that is show that you're part of for internships, because just depending on what the requirements are for that particular educational institution will determine whether it will be. On the apprenticeship side, yes, there is no restrictions for being an apprentice and also being enrolled in some type of internship program. So it would just whether it matched up with their qualifications for your school.
And for a real, hey, yes, God, I know everybo's excited about Maryland Million Day, except for when you have to put it on. No, it's a month and 2 days away. No, we love it. It's just, it's like mini Breeders' Cup. But let's go back to the career program because Maryland Million is like giving me heartburn. I'm actually sitting here emailing myself things that I should be doing, thinking about Maryland Million. But for the career program, it's June each year. It's 1 week in June, and it's usually after Belmont. So again, why not after Belmont? So kids are out of school, they haven't gone back to school. It's still early enough that you can take a week and then go do your summer job. That will all be on marylandhorse.com, but we start accepting applications in the spring. And if you follow Amplify, Anise is always good about sharing our stuff. And marylandhorse.com, our wonderfully beautiful, simple website, is really the place to go to keep your eye on that. I also try to do the University of Kentucky career program in the spring to tell people about it. But yeah, email with questions now. But then if you're interested in applying, just look for the application in the spring. We usually get it all wrapped up and selections made by Preakness.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question was how to apply. So you talked about the time frame for that. Lori, with the apprenticeship, is it basically a rolling application where anyone can apply at any time?
It is. There is no application deadline. They don't start or stop at a particular time. It's whenever apprentices apply, and we work it out to where they're going to be placed in terms of their employer or their apprenticeship site. So yeah, it can apply 24/7, 365. Yep.
So everyone out there watching, just so you know, time is ticking for you to send us your questions and comments. Actually, I was very pleased with the comments for today. This is the most active everyone has ever been. So there's definitely going to be a homework of the month. We need to think up something for this month to next month before the end of the show. But kind of the question that I always try to wrap things up on is, I'm looking for it here in my little banners. Best piece of advice for an industry newcomer. You know, whether that's the broader equine industry, someone who's new, or the thoroughbred industry specifically. Lori, kick us off with that.
Yeah, so this can kind of be outside of the industry as well, and just life advice is really if an opportunity presents itself, take it. Mm-hmm. Even if it may not be something that you had originally thought of, and you're questioning whether that's something you want to do. I did not know that I was going to be studying dead horses turning into dirt, and it ended up being a huge career and game changer for me. So I think really being open to opportunities, whether they're just a conversation or whether they're an in-person ability to take part in a program, et cetera, try it. And if you don't like it, that's one more thing that you don't want to pursue. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, is a lot of opportunities that I've been blessed to be able to take a part of is just because I've said yes.
Yeah, that's I can think of so many times in my life where it was like, whoa, I don't want to do that. But you learn, and then you file that away, you know, whether it's a part of the country you don't want to live in, or whether it's a particular task or role. And then I actually recently read an article about this, like find the thing that you always come back to. Mm-hmm. And it's really funny because when I got into the thoroughbred industry, I started with, just equine in general. I wanted to be a vet. And then when I learned about the thoroughbred industry, I wanted to be a jockey. And then it went to journalists. And I've always had this love-hate relationship with writing. And I always kept doing all these communications and writing internships. I was like, it's so painful because it can be so anxiety inducing to have to go interview someone and, the whole process of writing. But I kept coming back to it over and over again, and finally just found this way of settling into, I love media, I love writing, I love communications, but just finding a balance with it and making it my own. So I guess that's kind of my piece of advice is find what you're really good at, find what you can kind of make your own, and, find your unique qualities that help you to stand out as well. So sorry, nobody needed to hear it from me, but yeah, Jordan, you're next.
That was good. Lori, you nailed it. The same for me. I think like in high school and college, you kind of think, oh, I don't want to leave this, or, I had my horse and I didn't want to go to college because I had a horse. And I just think you always have to be thinking 10 years down the road, because eventually you do get to a point in life that is wonderful and settled, like I'm in now. But then I just moved to California. So never say never, but you eventually get to the point, and I keep saying this, that you can't just do whatever. So just try to do whatever opportunity you can while you can, and don't get hung up on a relationship or a horse or the college you always thought you were going to go to or some detail, because things that are supposed to last do or come back. So just take those opportunities and keep expanding, and always send the email and always ask, because there are so many people in this industry that are just thrilled to hear from somebody that's really interested. So do that. And I don't want to have Maryland Million sadness. So Steve,
I think
everybody,
first off, can you explain Maryland, like what the Maryland Million is?
Yes.
Before
I should let my total
there are all these people out there
exhaustion show through.
That's okay. I'm sure that there's so many people out there that would be so excited about it.
We also coordinate. So Jim McKay Maryland Million Day was started in 1985 by Jim McKay from the Wide World of Sports. And he went to the initial Breeders' Cup at Hollywood Park, California again, and flew back. He's a Marylander, and thought, why don't we do something like this for the Maryland industry? It's a sire program, so it's only for Maryland sired horses, which really is a good promotional tool, just like the Breeders' Cup for the Maryland Stallions. It's October 23rd, and in addition to being a great day of racing, there's $1 million in purses. It's one of the most fun days of racing in Maryland. It has a really local flavor. We get 20,000 people, 15 to 20,000 people at Laurel Park, which was the biggest day there. And it's just a lot of fun. And the good news is everybody wants to go. So that's good. It just keeps us busy from July to October. But Steve, track me down on MarylandMillion.com or MarylandHorse.com and shoot me an email if you're local. We do love to have people that love the day, and you can watch it on TVG. And we love people to bet on Maryland Million Day, because that obviously helps support the program. So just watch and wager on Maryland Million Day, or email me if you want to come, because I know somebody that could get you a ticket if you're a real passionate and fun kind of person. So,
wow, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. We've got another question here. What are some of the opportunities in Florida for the workforce initiatives?
So you can be an apprentice in Florida, since that is a national. But there is this, I guess, doesn't really have. Well, it does have something to do. We also work, and Issa and I work pretty closely with our Department of Corrections. So just kind of a plug for all the different populations we work with. There are some really amazing programs in Florida through the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation that are at 2 different correctional facilities in Florida that are teaching vocational programs to individuals that are incarcerated that are then placed in or helped to be placed in jobs in the equine industry in Florida specifically. So that's pretty exciting. So don't go to prison just so you can be part of that program. That's not what I'm saying.
I was going to say, disclaimer.
But there are lots of, that's one of the things I've had on my list that I really want to do is put together a list of volunteer opportunities in the industry, because that can be another great way of gaining experience, especially at aftercare facilities. The Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance on their website has an amazing map of all of their different aftercare facilities across the U.S. And a lot of those facilities are looking for volunteers, which that in itself could be a great entry-level way of gaining that hands-on experience with horses. Again, you might not be getting paid for it, which, you might do a lot of unpaid internships throughout your life, but some of that experience is absolutely invaluable. You can't buy experience but it's so valuable when you have it. So that's another great thing. And Lori and I both have some other amazing connections in Florida. If you want to reach out to either of us at any time, I'm looking for my email banner now on my banners. info@amplifyhorseracing.org, and amplifyhorseracing.org is our website. I don't want to keep these ladies all night because you guys have already dedicated a lot of your time. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. If anybody has any more questions for Jordan or Lori, you ran out of time to ask them live, so sorry about that. But email me and I will make sure that they get your question and they will give me the answer to your question, or I will connect you guys directly. So I'm happy to do that too. Jordan, Lori, thank you so much for joining tonight. This is amazing. I love both of you. You are just incredible, strong individuals, and I might be coming to visit you, Jordan, in California soon. As soon as it starts getting frozen and ice
I
over
have
here.
California connections too, so send any questions that way as well.
Yes,
And I'm not kidding.
yes, that would be awesome. So I will let you guys go. Have a wonderful rest of your night, and I will see you in the morning, Lori.
That's
For
right.
those who didn't pick up on it, I've said before, I'm the Kentucky Equine Education Project's Equine Education Coordinator. So I maybe should have said that at the top of the show. Lori and I work together all the time. So
Right. I wave
Yeah.
through her. I wave through our communal door in our office all the time. So.
yeah, exactly. I am the background in Lori's Zoom meetings some days.
She
So
is.
anyways,
Denise, for
you
the
guys have a
opportunity.
wonderful
Yes,
night.
thank you guys. Good to see you
Good
again, Lori.
night.
You
Bye-bye.
Awesome. Wow. What a episode. I'm just so thankful to have both of them in my life and to have them as incredible education connections. Again, if you have any other questions for Lori or Jordan, please do reach out. info@amplifyhorseracing.org is the email. amplifyhorseracing.org is our website. I've talked a bit about our mentorship program before. We're starting to, well, I can't say coming to the end. We have another month of our inaugural mentorship program intake, and then we're going to start pushing out a lot of material about how you can apply in the future to the Amplify Horse Racing Mentorship Program. And we have a really cool video that's going to be coming out soon with the perspectives of our mentees and some of our mentors. So that is all awesome and exciting stuff. Don't forget to join us October 19th, 1 month from now, for the next horse racing hangout, which is going to be part 1 of Racing Around the World. I hope you all had a wonderful, beautiful night, enjoyed this episode, and I will see you again soon. And don't forget to